Hello, family. Welcome to the 54 Correspondence podcast show, where we give you the latest roundup news of the topical issues happening across the continent of Africa. I am your host for the show, Spikes, alongside my co-host, Mr. Lagzon.
Yeah, I'm good.
It's another wonderful day to have a look at the issues taking place along the inside the continent. And today we're going to start off with one of the major happenings in Uganda. There has been an assassination attempt on the life of Bobi Wine, who was an artist, but then went into politics. Mm-hmm. And so Mr. Bobi Wine has been in the opposition for a while, mm-hmm. and he has been opposing the president, Mr. Yoweri Museveni, for quite some time. Yeah. And on his tweet yesterday, he said that the police killed his driver. Yeah. Because the assassination attempt was on the life of Bobi Wine, but then again, the people who had been sent to go make the attack shot the driver instead, and Mr. Bobi Wine already escaped the ordeal. And now, what's your view? Do you think that the government has anything to do with this?
It might be the government or an assassination attempt by the competitor. On the other hand, if it's the government, probably shooting the driver was not a mistake, but rather a warning sign for Mr. Bobi Wine to keep his mouth shut and to keep in line. So, these governments are very oppressive. They have a one-party rule, and any kind of opposition is crushed by assassination or torture, or a lot of things usually happens in these countries. And they still live in the dark ages. Anybody trying to oppose the government has to face the wrath. As I always tell you, the president is not the one to blame in these particular situations. There are others involved, so most likely his kitchen cabinet.
Yeah, sometimes you remember that we also had a recent case in Kenya where there was an assassination attempt on an MP. Yeah. And sometimes you might find that maybe it's an opponent or even some people working from his inside circle. Yeah. So it's never the police have to take this up and conduct the investigations. Yeah. And come up with a full report on what transpired, what is going on. Yeah. And I think also these members of parliament should be given more security, because when there's a threat on his life, that is a matter of life and death, and they should be taken seriously. Yeah. And also, moving on from Uganda, we'd like to have a look at Mali. Recently, there was the elections in Mali. Yeah. And I think nothing much has changed.
Yeah, it was a runoff from a 2 weeks election. Remember, we talked about it the last time. The opposition candidate did not take it lightly, so there was a runoff. I think they took over from Kenya. That trend of runoffs has been going on for long. And the president, the incumbent president, still retained a seat, but it's caused a lot of protest across the country, as the opposition does not want to accept this whole election outcome, and they are very aggressive. And Mali is mad with terrorists, so the country is going through a rough time right now because of that.
And also a different situation in Zimbabwe. Yeah. Zimbabwe, that we've been talking about the elections that took place a week ago. Yeah. And Mr. Mnangagwa, as we had predicted, won the elections, though it was closely contested. Yeah. Because Mr. Chamisa, who came in second, still has a case to take to the court, because he still argues that he won. Yeah. But the international observers there say that the election was fair to the larger extent. Like Salif Johnson from Liberia was one of the observers. Yes. She's a former president of Liberia, and she said that to a larger extent, that of course there were challenges, and but as expected, the incumbent president, Mr. Mnangagwa, also happened to have the backing of the Chinese. Also went in and took a lead, and now he's the president. Yeah. But in Africa, we have seen that the elections have always been controversial. Yeah. You will not find a case where everyone will agree that the election went well.
Yeah, no. Okay, Africa people don't agree to these things. They always in the opposition. someone is trying to claim that he won the election and so forth, but they know all too well they can't beat the incumbent if the incumbent is not willing to step away. And that is very common even in MP and governor elections. They also marred with irregularities.
Yeah, that's very true. But also we have another election that we're looking forward to. This is the election in DRC Congo. You know that Mr. Kabila recently said that he'll not be vying for the elections. But he put forward a man who says that he will be backing for the elections. And Mr. Kabila himself has been in power even after his term ended. Yeah. He has been in power for 2 years. He has extended his term by 2 years, claiming that the environment was not conducive for elections in his country. Yeah. And now that he has decided not to vie, there's a possibility that the guy that he chose might be the one to take have the power after Mr. Kabila leaves. But we're looking forward to see what will happen there. We're not quite sure, but we know that like the incumbent, like you mentioned, Mr. Lacson, the incumbent themselves, there's a very, very, very large probability that the incumbent, nothing changes much. And like we say, there's an intervention of probably sometimes the military, sometimes the international organizations, and but when the situation is being managed locally, the incumbent has an upper hand in that. Yes. So moving on from that, we have an issue of palm oil, the farming of palm oil in Africa. Yeah. It has been a threat to the lives of primates. Primates live in this forest where people are now encroaching to go and farm for palm oil.
Yeah, but I feel that this whole idea of claiming that primates are endangered is a type of fallacy. Yeah, it's a hoax, because the most conservatives, they have these arguments, always counter arguments. When Africa is trying to develop and move a step ahead, there is always something. If they are trying to build a refinery, trying to build a power plant, trying to build anything, there is always an argument, a counter argument against that. Oh, you are going to destroy the environment, and we have these so-called conservatives who are funded by Western governments. They will then bring us solar lamps the size of a pumpkin. I heard one professor say that in South Africa. They bring so small units that they are telling you that's how you keep the environment safe. Essentially something that will not help you move along in life. It will not bring any industrial development. Tell me how a solar panel can power an industry. That is not going to work. And even a wind powered power plant, it will not help an industry. When the wind is down, it won't blow. So essentially, conservatives in Africa are missing some point.
But you'll also find that the influence has come from this study has come from the Europeans. You know, it's not a local
that's
study.
What I'm saying.
This is a study that says,
whenever they see Africa is going to develop, they tend to oppose that whole notion. Because if we talk of palm oil coming from Africa, that means we do not have to ship it from China anymore, or Asia or Thailand. We can source it locally, which will in turn boost our exports as opposed to depending on those people. That is the same case in terms of many things. We don't have to get these things from the West. And that is why the West uses these conservatives to claim things that do not really affect Africa in any general way.
Another controversial issue that came up along the week is that a killer hippo was shot dead. That attacked a Chinese in Naivasha. Chinese tourist in Naivasha.
Yeah, he was taking pictures.
As he was taking pictures there. But I think this issue would have been taken very, very, very differently if at all it was a local who was attacked by the hippo.
I doubt if it was a local, anything would have been done. We've had these cases lots and lots of time from crocodiles, hippos, pythons, nothing is usually done to those things. They'll be taken back to a different park and they'll be let loose. But since this case is a foreigner, I think it's taken seriously, probably because these guys fund this so-called. But don't forget that the Chinese are the ones who are involved in a lot of ivory trade.
Yeah, that's very controversial. Also,
so
you remember,
probably it's payback from that hippo.
But I've also seen these Chinese in the parks. Recently, we went to the Nairobi National Park and I witnessed a lot of Chinese there. There's some Koreans and Chinese involved in the park. Yeah. I don't know if they are volunteers or whatever they were doing in the park. Yeah. But this case, I think it was more of a PR stunt.
Yeah, it's more of a PR stunt to encourage Chinese tourists. But Chinese tourists are not some of the best spenders. Yeah, I don't think you can compare them with other tourists.
They are definitely not the best spenders, but they come in numbers. That's where the case is. Plus, also I have seen that they have.
The Germans are more in numbers than the Chinese, even though their population is lower. And they spend more.
I know they spend more, but I've seen that the involvement of the Chinese in the tourism industry has changed. Recently, I saw a tourist van owned by a Chinese company.
So yeah, that's a big problem because they are trying to uproot our local market. You had the fish market; they are very much involved. They are the ones shipping tilapia. Our locals are not being able to source their own.
Yeah, I think the government should consider this because letting these Chinese tourists, Chinese come and start up these tourism companies, these food processing companies here. Plus, they have also had a chain of casinos in Nairobi. You remember there's a place called Hurlingham. Yeah, they have had a chain of casinos in Hurlingham. I think the government should look into this. This is slowly them coming to interfere with the dynamics of trade in Kenya, and even in Africa at large. Because you see, like we mentioned earlier about Zimbabwe, we have seen that they have a hand in the elections, and they want things to go Mnangagwa's way so that they can continue with the condition there. You know, like they offered to build the parliament for Zimbabwe. Yeah. And recently, we also had the case where they have been bugging the AU offices in Ethiopia.
Yeah, because they constructed those offices.
Because they constructed the offices.
That's their property.
The Chinese is up to no good in Kenya. So the government, I think, should take this very, very seriously. And even as we come to the close of
okay, there's one thing. In Malawi, there are a few journalists, BBC based, were mistaken for ritual killers, though they were investigating the situation in Malawi. And one is a Ghanaian reporter, Mr. Anas, and the investigators were investigating what we call, okay, let me use that term. They were looking into the human harvesting of organs in that particular country. Unfortunately, they were taken as people who are involved in a murder case. The journalist that disguised as a business tycoon wanted to increase his business and visited a local medicine man to find out what is going on in the country. And he was told that these people are they are involved in a lot of rituals, like the harvesting of organs, some very peculiar organs. You know how these cases work, and then they'll burn down their victims and so forth. So some bizarre rituals, and I think a mob had mistaken this journalist to be involved in that ritual. Yet he was investigating it.
That's a very, very serious case. You know, like investigative journalism, you have to take a risk.
Yeah, it's very risky.
When you want to go and
assuming you are investigating a terrorist organization,
you have to disguise as one of the parties.
Yeah,
involved.
So if the troops come and they are shooting down terrorists,
you'll be taken out as well.
Yeah, that's the problem.
As we come to the close of the 54 Correspondent podcast show, we would also like to have a look at a new rule, a promise by the Tunisian president, Mr. Kaid Essebsi of Tunisia. And he said that he'll put forward a proposal for guys to have inheritance equality in Tunisia. You know that in Tunisia, that is primarily an Islamic country. Yeah. And you know that the rights of women are not much considered. They are oppressed, of course. Yeah. And there's not much of anything to do with equality in Tunisia. Now the president has come up and said that he'll put forward a suggestion where the members of parliament can put into law a new kind of law where there will be inheritance equality, because when when you have siblings in a family, and most of them are men, and versus the ladies don't have a say when it comes to inheritance matters.
Yeah, in Africa, not even in North Africa alone, women are very, very much repressed. In most cases, inheritance goes to the wives of, probably a wife to someone, but it's rare for a daughter to inherit his father. And I think the president of Tunisia is trying to change that and ensure that women have an inheritance right.
It probably means well for the country. That has been the 54 Correspondent podcast show. I have been your host, Mrs. Pikes, alongside my co-host, Lagzon. It has been a pleasure having you listening. Remember, you can give us your feedback on our social media, on Twitter, Black Coat Fire Network, and also on our website. Check our website, that is www.blackcoatfirenetwork.com. Till next time, goodbye.
Ciao.